Hey there, brave adventurer. Are you ready to journey into the past and uncover the dark and mysterious tale of World War II? It's a story filled with powerful leaders, daring battles, and a world turned upside down. But don't worry, we'll keep things light, and maybe even find a bit of humor along the way, like finding a rainbow after a storm. Our story begins in the 1930s, a time when the world wasn't exactly the happiest place. There were countries that weren't getting along, and some leaders had big, not-so-nice plans. One of these leaders was a man named Adolf Hitler, who ruled Germany. Now, Hitler wasn't a very friendly guy. He wanted to take over lots of other countries and believed some pretty terrible things about people who were different from him. You could say he was like the villain in a story who wanted to be the boss of everyone. In 1939, Hitler decided to start a big fight by invading a country called Poland. This was like someone kicking over a beehive. All the other countries got really mad, and soon the whole world was buzzing with war. Countries like Britain, France, and later the United States teamed up to stop Hitler and his friends, who were called the Axis powers. It was like a giant game of tug-of-war, with each side pulling as hard as they could. The fighting spread to many places, Europe, Africa, and even Asia. There were battles on land, in the air, and at sea. Imagine planes zooming through the sky, tanks rolling across fields, and ships sailing into dangerous waters. But this wasn't just a game. It was a real and very scary time for everyone involved. People all around the world had to be super brave, whether they were soldiers fighting on the front lines or families trying to stay safe at home. And there were some pretty famous battles, like the Battle of Britain, where the British pilots were like eagles in the sky, protecting their land from enemy planes. Now, here comes the really sad part of our story. Hitler and his followers did some terrible things to millions of innocent people. They put them in camps and treated them very cruelly just because they were different. This is called the Holocaust, and it's one of the darkest chapters in history. It's important to remember this part of the story so that we can make sure something like that never happens again. After years of fighting, the countries that were against Hitler started to win more and more battles. It was like the sun starting to peek through after a long storm. In 1944, something amazing happened. On a day called D-Day, soldiers from many countries worked together to land on the beaches of France and push the enemy back. It was a turning point, and it showed that when people work together, they can do incredible things. By 1945, the war was finally over. The bad guys were defeated, and people all around the world celebrated. But the world had been through a lot, and there was a lot of rebuilding to do. Countries had to work together to make sure something like World War II would never happen again. It was a time to start fresh and to build a better, more peaceful world. So, what can we learn from this dark and mysterious tale? Well, we learn that war is never something to be taken lightly. It causes a lot of pain and sadness. But we also learn about bravery, teamwork, and the importance of standing up for what's right. Even in the darkest times, there were people who showed kindness and courage, and they remind us that there's always a way to find the light, even when things seem really tough. And that's the end of our story about World War II. It's a tale full of heroes, villains, and important lessons. But history is kind of like a giant book, and this was just one of many stories in it. Who knows what other adventures we might discover if we keep reading? Remember, history isn't just about what happened in the past. It's also about learning how to make the future bright and full of hope. So keep being curious, keep asking questions, and maybe one day you'll write your own chapter in the story of the world.